When your vocabulary is lopsided and your words are out of place, dictionary.com will give it a fix. Fee, fi, fo, fum. Sounds like we're getting a little bigger here with the Word Up Show, where we discuss certain words, vocabulary, and terminology that you have questions about and you want help on expanding, So, we've got to expand our vocabulary and get rid of those slang terms, Since yesterday, you remember when we discussed slang terms and that particularly ridiculous and despicable term 6-7? Because that is a brain rot term that most of us are utilizing by now, and every Alpha generation and every Generation Z person has heard about this term, and they can conceive this term whenever they like, but in the Word Up Show, we tend to get rid of those slang terms and start opening the door to formality and advanced vocabulary. So, like I said yesterday episode, I discussed what 6-7 obviously meant, which obviously pertains to a measurement or otherwise a person's height or a score in the obvious scoreboard. So there's this new number that just came out, and it is relatively similar to 6-7, right? Or it's just 67 as I would say it. And it is 41. Now, just Googling it in terms of the number 41, obviously, 41 just pertains to that particularly similar 6-7 video, and it just relates to that kind of joke, which just gestures us, or in other words, JESTERS's us, with that 41 aspect, which you just say 41 or just 41, But I thought, where did all of these numbers come from? Did we just pickpocket this out of our pockets and just throw it out of midair and just call it a slang term and just conceived it and gave birth to it? Did we just happen to create and try to tinker and manipulate it in such a way that it allows us to feel impressed by other people and feel interacted? Or just interactive in terms of that word, or just that numerical phrase? I think not. Because do you know why? Those two numbers are slang terms, and we have to be careful of them. Because everybody just says 6-7 out of the pocket, and 41 out of their pocket also. 4-1, 6-7. Those two cardinal numbers, or counting numbers, obviously, are just out of the ordinary and despicable. And that's why the Word Up Show is here to expand your vocabulary and start to open up on what it means to feel sophisticated and more formal. So you remember when we talked about slang yesterday episode we discussed slang terms and what the definition of the word slang is relatively long, but just to say it out there, it is a type of language that consists of words and phrases that are regarded as very informal and are more common in speech than writing, and also are typically restricted to a particular context or group of people, which obviously you may talk about a basketball court or a soccer game or a baseball game or a football game, if you will, in the football arena, or a football stadium, which is beyond a doubt despicable. If we're just talking games, then you can just talk about 6-7 and the score in the scoreboard. If you just want to be more premium and more contextual, you can just throw that in there in terms of that game. But most people these days, as I perceive it, are incontextual. Because do you know why? Because when people just say 6, 7 out of their pockets and out of their mouths, then that just does not mean anything. That just does not mean a certain wallop of a thing. It just doesn't. And that's what most adults today are highly concerned about. They are exceedingly and extremely concerned about why 6, 7 does not mean a daggone thing. It just does not mean a wallop of a thing. It just does not mean a certain thing at all. It just does not acquire a certain definition in which we ourselves are displaying that to supposedly make them laugh. But it just isn't funny. It obviously is not funny. And to my eyesight and my mind sight, or in other words, in my mind, I think we get 6, 7, and 41, or 4-1, obviously, from the rapping industry, rhythm and poetry. We just pull it, we just pickpocket that out of our pockets, and we just start to purloin that and just place that into a lyric just to open the door to interacting with people and starting to bring people together. But through my eyesight, to my mind sight, that supposedly is disbanding people. It's just disbanding everybody and leaving everybody behind in terms of that particular numerical phrase. Those 2 numerical phrases at that. And that in the formal community, we would just stick out our tongues at 6, 7, and 41, or otherwise 4-1. We would just stick out our tongues at numbers and numerical phrases and numerical nouns, adjectives, in which they suck. They particularly suck when it comes to that particular piece of vocabulary that formal communities may particularly stick out their tongues at and just blow raspberry at. And it is beyond shameful for the Alpha generation and the Z generation to just pick that out of their pockets and just throw that in there as if it were in the soup. As if it were to be troublesome for teachers, for adults, for formal communities. Because if we think of American English today, we started with 67 and 41 as we did when we were born, right? When we were children, when we were babies, when we were infantile, when we were birthed, when we were conceived, we were supposed to learn cardinal numbers. You heard me correctly. Cardinal numbers. 1 all the way to 10. Or 1 all the way to 100. Counting numbers. The ones in your fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Simple as that. But why 6, 7? Why 4, 1? Why 41? Are these numbers today let me put it this way. Are these cardinal counting numbers today becoming the new slang terms today? As if they were the numerical phrases that do not make a lick of sense. Because that does not lick anything. They do not lick anything. They lick nonsensically, but not in this sense, because it's incontextual. It does not define into anything. And that's why formal communities spit at that word and start kicking their their physical, solid 67 shaped bodies down. They start to kick them and just call them, that is not how you say it. That, particularly in the human speech, is not how you say it aloud. And I agree. When we start to feel more tensile and more aggressive and aggravated towards 6-7, we start to think that does not make a lick of sense. It just doesn't make sense that we are starting to feel as though that we are more conjured and more roped in and more hypnotized by 6-7 and 41 or 4-1, which that triumvirate does not make sense at all either. Because many of you school children out there, you high schoolers, you middle schoolers, you elementary school fellas, you all are perusing and trying to conceive the numbers 67 and 41 out of nowhere. You have to think about that. When you were little, when you were learning to count, going from 1 all the way to 10, using your fingers, when you gone from 10 and skip counted to get to 100, what did you do? You utilized multiplication, you utilized division, you utilized long division, you utilized the number line. You gone from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But do you have to utilize the hand motions though? No, you don't. You don't have to. You don't have to utilize the infamous hand signal to impress other people. You don't always have to impress other people by that number. Because in my mindsight, it just does not make sense. It just does not make sense, and that's why I'm warning you to stop. Discard every bit and bob of slang and start expanding. Now, what I'm talking about when I'm talking about expanding your vocabulary is reading a dictionary just to get rid of all the slang terms. Grow your brain. Your brain is the most important organ as well as your heart. Your heart and brain work together so that you learn more about whatever it is that you are immersed in. That's the point. That is the realistically principal point. That is. And if you start to read a dictionary and start to expand your vocabulary and start to use compound words and utilize a prefix, suffix, and compile that together and start experimenting and start tinkering and start wrenching in those polyptotons, which we'll get to in the next episode, the polyptotons, then you will start to open the door to whatever vocabulary that you like. Simple as that. It is very, very simple. Very, very simple indeed. Quote that it is really simple, since we all rely on slang terms a lot, and we just do not care about formal words. We just care about the informality of words and the informality of the American English language and the American English dialect and the American English dictionary and the English speech, the American English speech. And that is why you have to get rid of those slang terms and just sit yourself down on a chair and read a dictionary. Just pull up a phone. Pull up a computer. Start to utilize a word that is in the dictionary. In dictionary.com, which is beyond a resource for you. Just utilize that, for goodness sake. Just utilize that. This is the Word Up Show.